Hi, I'm Avery Davidson. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, the only TV show bringing Louisiana farmers and consumers together every week. We'll catch up with Kristen a little later in the show in her garden. The Louisiana oyster and shrimp industries together inject more than $1.6 billion a year into the state's economy and keeps nearly 20,000 people employed. That's according to the Louisiana Seafood Promotion and Marketing Board. Because both are so important to Louisiana economically and culturally, Governor John Bel Edwards went out on a boat to get a working understanding of these industries. With a flock of seagulls for an audience, Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards learns that shrimping ain't easy. Aboard Le Bon Papa, Governor Edwards gets lessons in how to shovel the catch off the deck, remove the fish from the shrimp, and how to sort shrimp. It's hard work, but something Edwards says he wanted to do.
This is important to our economy, it's important to tourism, it's important to our culture and our way of life. And so to be able to spend a day down here, just a special day for me, and I will tell you, very rewarding.
Prior to going out on a shrimp boat, Governor Edwards spent time at Motivated Seafoods in Houma to meet with those involved in the oyster industry. Fourth-generation oyster grower John Tesvich is chairman of the Oyster Task Force. He's concerned about proposed diversions from the Mississippi River into Barataria Bay and Breton Sound. He says the combination of fresh water and silt intended to rebuild the coast would kill oysters.
We're talking about, hundreds of millions of dollars of impact annually on one diversion. And so if you put a diversion on each side of the river, you're talking about, a couple of $100 million a year just in oyster damages.
Jack Modise is the Secretary of Wildlife and Fisheries. He says there's a good reason why Governor Edwards is taking so many notes.
I know the governor. He's going to instruct us to look at what are things that we can do to either soften the blow or help the industry to not only stay where they're at, but allow them to grow in the process.
It's a tough situation because we have simply got to restore our coast. We have to create more protection from hurricanes and other storms. And when we do that, there's going to be some disruption visited upon people. We need to try to minimize that, fully mitigate it if possible, if not minimize it. And so we have to have a plan going forward.
Back out on the shrimp boat south of Cocodrie, Governor Edwards shares a few moments with Wildlife and Fisheries Commissioner Jerry Smitko and her granddaughter. Smitko imparts to the governor just how much commercial fishermen have in common with farmers and ranchers.
Commercial fishermen work hard to make a living. They face a lot of adversity, whether it's the weather or the tides or the hurricanes and the price, equipment breakdowns. But they're resilient people, they're giving people, and I think the greatest aspect of the industry are the people that make it up.
And after a full day of hard work, Governor Edwards is ready to take what he's learned back to Baton Rouge, along with little Lanyap.
I guess my favorite thing is I'm bringing a bag of shrimp home, and I'm looking forward to eating those shrimp.
Obviously, those oyster farmers and fishermen are really concerned about proposed projects to divert fresh water from the Mississippi River. In the coming months, Twila will bring you a special edition of the show focused on the Mississippi River, the people who depend upon it, and the research underway right now to use the river to build up the state's coast. According to the AARP, gardening is a healthy pastime. You get more vitamin D from being out in the sun. It helps with your mood, and a 2006 study found that gardening can lower your risk of dementia by 36%. To help promote gardening in urban areas, Laughing Buddha Nursery near New Orleans is working to fill flower beds. And as Twila's Neil Melanson tells us, it's serious fun.
When you want farm fresh food, the heart of Metairie might not be your first thought, but that's exactly what you can find here at Laughing Buddha Nursery, which started in 2003 to provide the area with gardening supplies. Owner Kate Estrad said over the years, they've expanded into providing some of the end products as well.
The food business is sort of a newer part of what we do, but there's definitely, we've seen a huge demand, and that You know, it's like almost like I don't have the numbers on it yet because it's still growing so much. Like it's changing by the day almost.
This greenhouse in the middle of the city provides some of the produce you can see on the shelves inside. Estrad said, though, it's more about educating consumers on where their food comes from and how to grow it.
You know, I think everyone could grow some of their own vegetables, even if it's just herbs. And I think having any connection to your food directly is an awesome thing. So even if you're a city dweller in a high rise, like there's something really special about being able to even just grow your parsley.
Now, one thing consumers can't readily grow is the meat available here. Beef, pork, and chicken are all stocking the coolers here and come from local cooling farms in Bogalusa, which Estrad owns along with her husband, Grant.
And we have a whole bunch of cuts of meat from, you know, beef fillet to our andouille sausage and bacon, ground pork, roast steaks, things like that.
Bringing people together is a natural part of their business. In fact, it's something of a love story.
So Grant's my husband. I met him as a customer at the store. I bought earthworms for my compost. So how about that?
Of course, they still sell nursery products, and some of the compost and fertilizer available here is under their own label. Estrad says once customers get a taste of growing their own produce, it's an easy sell.
We hear a lot of like, this is what my grandma's food tasted like.
Laughing Buddha Nursery has an extensive online presence, both with a website and on social media. We'll be sure and get you a link there on our website, of course. And next week, I'm going to take you to Bogalusa, where a lot of Laughing Buddha's products come from. Kate's husband, Grant, runs the farm, and you'll get to see how they make all those fresh products. And Avery, this was just a fun story, of course, you know, getting to go there and see where they sell all these products. And I think the key with all of this is freshness. That's not only key to Laughing Buddha's success, but I think the key to this farm-to-table movement and this idea of getting consumers more involved in agriculture. They just really want that access to farm-fresh products, and this is one of those ways they deliver it. And of course, we can't do that everywhere yet, but I think as consumers get more involved, start doing more of their own gardening, start at least buying market products directly from farmers, they'll get to taste the difference.
What I think is neat about this story, and you were really, really jazzed whenever you came back from shooting this, is that it is a true combination of rural and urban, having something in an urban setting, but what they do out in Bogalusa is definitely in a rural setting.
It is, and they actually have, you know, the row crop agriculture right next to them with a corn farm that you'll get to see next week. But Grant kind of has his feet in both worlds. You know, he's from New Orleans. He started the nursery first, then the farm came later where they introduced all these products there, and as you can see, they're just selling really well.
You always find those great stories. Thank you very much, Neil Malassaw. September is National Rice Month, but apparently nobody told the weather. Rice farmers in southwest Louisiana must dodge daily rain showers while trying to get this year's crop in. But as Twila's AJ Sabine shows us, the wet weather has not dampened the spirits of growers who feel that this year has been good for them.
Jeff Davis Parish rice grower Donald Birkin navigates between rain showers on his farm in Welsh. Birkin splits his attention between his yield monitor and showers that have now dominated his horizon.
We put in a good week, and then we started catching some rains starting Sunday, and it's been raining ever since until yesterday was the first full day that I was able to put in since last Sunday. Yesterday was Friday. And we're doing pretty well again today.
Wet weather is among a list of growing concerns many rice farmers have during this year's harvest. Too much rain could severely damage fields, which could ultimately leave money in the dirt and not in the combine.
Well, it is a bit frustrating. Yeah, you want to get the rice out on a timely basis to make sure that your the grain quality holds up, your milling holds up, and that sort of thing, and the fields don't get wet. But that's just the weather the way it is. That's one of the things you have to deal with when farming.
Over the past 4 years, misfortune has plagued Louisiana rice growers, including bad seed and lower yields. However, Birkin opines that this year could be different. But those changes, whatever they may be, may not likely be felt by consumers.
I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot of difference in prices at the supermarket. The value of the commodity in the store doesn't fluctuate that much. We see fluctuation in prices at our level, yes, but it's more competitive at the grocery store level. But especially when you've got several different mills, I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot of difference in price at the store.
Still, Burkett remains upbeat about the quality and quantity of this year's harvest. While rain showers do punctuate his work, trade is likely a larger issue that weighs heavily on many farmers here in Louisiana.
I don't think it's going to really get that much more expensive. We've got some issues with being able to sell to other countries simply because of the tariffs that are being imposed.
Right.
And that could be an issue, so I don't think that's going to bring the price of rice up. If anything, it could bring the price of rice down.
Burkett harvested nearly 400 acres of rice this year. Louisiana rice growers across the state planted more than 433,000 acres of rice. For more information about Louisiana rice, you can log on to our website at twilatv.org. As I mentioned a moment ago, September is National Rice Month. In recognition of National Rice Month, USA Rice is hosting its annual scholarship video contest. If you are a high school student graduating in May from Louisiana, Arkansas, California, Mississippi, Missouri, or Texas, those are the main rice growing states, you could win up to a $4,000 scholarship. All you have to do is make a 3-minute video that creates awareness and promotes U.S. grown rice, September National Rice Month, and the importance of rice to your state. The first place winner will receive that $4,000 scholarship, second place will get a $3,000 scholarship, and third place a $1,500 scholarship. To learn more about the National Rice Month Scholarship, visit our website at twilatv.org. With the U.S. imposing tariffs on goods from China and the Chinese government retaliating with tariffs on agricultural exports from the United States, trade is a hot topic for farmers and ranchers. That's why Farm Bureau presidents from several states are meeting with U.S. Vice President Mike Pence. Among those meeting with Vice President Pence was American Farm Bureau Vice President Scott Vanderwall of South Dakota.
It's all a process, and international trade is an ongoing process. We never reach our goal where we want to go with that, but we talked about bilateral trade agreements as well, and trying to find new markets for our products, and that's just an ongoing process all the time.
To see and hear more reaction from Farm Bureau representatives, head over to our website at twilatv.org. As you just heard, most of the first rice crop has been harvested. The same is true of Louisiana corn. Franklin Parish Farm Bureau President and corn farmer Adam Falk says that this year has been an average one for himself and others in northeast Louisiana.
We finished cutting corn Monday afternoon. I think corn did mighty well for the year that we had. It wasn't a bumper crop, and it wasn't a bad crop. It was just, I say, a good average crop, and I think really far as a year, I think it turned out mighty well to be as dry as we had it. We just about made it all with irrigation. We kept missing all the rains around. It would rain 10 miles from us, but it never would rain, on the majority of our farm. And we just kept water going, and it was hot and dry.
According to the National Agricultural Statistics Service, Louisiana farmers planted 430,000 acres of corn. So far, the yield numbers from across the state confirm the average year, showing 174 bushels being the average yield in 2018. This is spot on with the 5-year average in Louisiana corn yields. Still to come on Twila, we catch up with Kristen Oakes White to see what she has found blooming on the bayou. Stay with us.
I now hope they're fighting today.
I hope they are. Put a Dorito on here.
I got a fish! I got a fish!
Find your place in the country and the lender who can get you there. Find Louisiana Land Bank. Financing for country homes, recreational property, farms and ranches, and agribusiness.
I'm a farmer.
I am a farm wife.
I am a cowboy.
I am a grass farmer.
I'm a businesswoman.
I'm a conservationist.
I am an advocate.
I am a voice for Louisiana farmers.
I'm always learning.
I'm a husband.
I'm a mom.
I am a dad.
I'm a granddad.
I am a consumer.
I grow the food that feeds your family, and I'm proud of it. I am Farm Bureau.
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 We are Farm Bureau.
Louisiana oysters, salty, sweet, and delicious. But have you ever thought about what happens to all those oyster shells? Most of them end up in trash cans and landfills. The Coalition to Restore Coastal Louisiana is changing this with its oyster shell recycling program, and you can help by visiting these participating restaurants. It's a simple and delicious way to restore our coast. The shells will then be used to sustain and rebuild oyster reefs. Remember, once you shuck them, don't just chuck them.
Labor Day may signal the unofficial end of summer, but that doesn't mean it's time to end your vegetable garden. In the Deep South, we still have plenty of warm days ahead of us. And now is the best time to dig in and revamp and revive your garden for the fall. In this edition of Blooming on the Bayou, Twila's Kristen Oaks-White enlists the help of an expert from the LSU Ag Center to help you transition your vegetable garden from summer to fall to gain a bountiful harvest for weeks to come.
Hey guys, welcome back to Blooming on the Bayou, and today we're here at the LSU Ag Center Botanic Gardens at Burden, and this place is a gardener's dream. There's lots of beautiful and exotic plants that you can feast your eyes upon, but the best thing about this place are the wealth of horticulture experts that can help you answer any questions that you might have about your garden, and we're gonna go find one to talk about our subject today. We're in luck. We've already found an expert to help us with our horticulture questions. This is Lee Rouse, the East Baton Rouge Parish horticulture agent. And Lee, this time of year, you know that vegetable gardeners, it's a really tough transition time because you've got some plants that are still thriving, but you've also got some plants that look kind of raggedy. So what are some things that you need to just go ahead and give up and some that can thrive until October?
Certainly, yeah. So it's a difficult time because we have hot weather and cold weather kind of rubbing elbows. So stuff like okra, it's on its last leg. You can get a few more pods off of it, but really, if you're ready to get some new plants in the garden, these need to come out. If you're growing cucumbers from spring, get that out the garden. Hot peppers, I would get your last harvest off of those as quickly as possible. They're starting to get stink bugs, they're starting to get leaf-footed bugs. Spring tomatoes, you want to get those out of the garden. Many times you'll have them in the garden. You'll have determinants or indeterminates, determinants being the plants that grow to a certain height, and then indeterminates, they'll continue to keep growing. Many times the determinate plants will peter out late spring into summer, but the indeterminates will keep growing and they'll have the appearance that maybe they're still doing well because they do have some tomatoes on them. But really, get those out of the garden, get the insects out, rotate your crops, and put something new in that place.
You said that eggplants need to be pulled up because I just planted some eggplants at the end of July, and so you're telling me I need to pull them up?
If you planted your eggplants back in spring, absolutely. They've been there for a long time. They're starting to gather some insects and start eating it. You can see right here we have a hornworm caterpillar that's starting to eat this. And if anybody's ever grown tomatoes or anything in the Solanaceae family, this caterpillar is going to devour this in a heartbeat. So again, another good reason to just start fresh is to get all of this material out of there, get rid of that food source for the insects, and then start with some new, fresh plants. You can still get away with planting some cucumbers. You'll get some further into, say, October, November. You can harvest off of that. You can also plant some of your tomatoes, your fall tomatoes. And we have an excellent resource at the LSUAgCenter.com, the Louisiana Vegetable Planting Guide, that has tons of different varieties to choose from.
Now, something you mentioned earlier that you can plant right now, beans. And I've never had a whole lot of luck with beans. I think it's because when I plant them, they're always kind of an afterthought, and I put them in an area of the garden that doesn't either get a lot of sun throughout the whole day, or I don't have a lot of space, so I usually plant bush beans. But you said this is a great additive to anybody's fall vegetable garden.
Certainly. So moving into September, you can plant lima beans or you can plant snap beans. Typically we direct seed these, which means we just put them straight into the garden. You can also buy transplants if needed, but once they come up, you're going to get a plethora of beans off of either one of them, whether it's snap beans or green beans or lima beans. The other thing that are great about beans is that a bush bean, which is this variety here, is going to produce a lot more beans than a pole bean would. But if you're limited on space, you can grow the pole beans on a trellis vertically and actually get more beans per square foot than you would on a bush bean.
So we talked about beans. Another question that I've been dying to ask you, with squash and zucchini. You said that you can put it in the ground right now. I love to plant these every spring, but it never fails. In June, towards the end of June, they look great. It seems like every year before I go to the Farm Bureau convention, I come back and squash vine borers have devoured the entire plant, and I know that once that happens, you're done and you need to pull them up. Is that something you still have to worry about if you put new plants in the ground right now?
Absolutely. The squash vine borer is absolutely a terrible insect that can, as you know, kill an entire crop of squash. So the best thing to know how to get rid of it is to understand the life cycle of that insect and properly identify the adult moth that it comes from. So it's going to be a black and red moth that's going to fly around. She's going to lay her eggs inside the vine of that squash, and those grubs are going to eat out the inside, and it's going to cause a lot of damage to the rest of that plant. So one of the best ways to get rid of that is to take care of the adult if you see the adult. So it's going to be the base of the vine that you really want to exclude that moth from. They're typically not going to lay too far up the vine as it grows. They want to get inside that part right next to the ground. Another great alternative is to wrap the base of the squash vine in foil as it's coming up, and that'll prevent that insect from laying her eggs inside of the vine.
See, that's a very good fact to know and something I'll have to remember next year when planting my squash. Well, we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, Lee's going to show us some tips and tricks to planting your fall tomato garden and how to make it thrive so you can have tomatoes well into October. Stay with us.
I've been delivering Meals on Wheels to Leon for 13 years.
It's always a pleasure to see you.
Leon has definitely inspired me to put more into my relationships. He really cared for his wife, who was ailing for quite a while, in such a touching way that inspired me to be a better person.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at americaletsdolunch.org.
America, let's do lunch!
Before you sweeten your morning joe, before the icing on the cake, before the sugar hits the shelf, it begins with a family of sugarcane farmers dedicated to growing Louisiana for more than 220 years. The Sugarcane Growers of Louisiana, making life sweeter, naturally.
Sugarcane, sweet sugarcane.
Landowners are minding the Louisiana forest for our grandchildren. A place for wildlife, recreation, lumber for homes. It's the right thing to do. Forestry, covering half our state, all of our hearts.
Okay, we're back and we're going to talk about my favorite topic, and that's tomatoes in the garden. But I've never been very successful planting fall tomatoes, but I think you're going to give me some tips and tell me the difference between, there is a difference between spring and fall tomatoes.
Yeah, so one of the biggest differences with spring and fall tomatoes is some of the morphological factors of the flower. And so some of our spring tomatoes aren't going to be able to set too well right here in the fall months. And then the fall tomatoes aren't going to set too well in the spring months. And part of that is due to the climatic issues. So you're planting spring tomatoes when it's cooler and the temperatures are increasing throughout the growing season. Well, we're planting these in the hot of summer or fall here in South Louisiana, and then hopefully eventually the temperatures will start to decline. So that's the differences in the temperatures and why some set in spring and why some set in fall, is because some are increasing in temperature through the growing season and some are decreasing in temperature through their growing season.
So tell me about some of those varieties that you can go in the store right now and pick up that would be great to plant in the fall.
So a few that I've seen in a couple nurseries around town have been Phoenix, Florida 91s, Heatmaster, Solar Set, Solar Flare, Again, anything with that hot title to it, something that's saying that it is hot right now and it's going to be able to do well in this temperature.
Okay. Are there different things that you need to keep in mind when you're putting your fall tomatoes in the ground, or you want to do the same things that you do in the spring?
Certainly, one of the things that you would definitely do is pull a soil test before planting. So you probably had one in the springtime. You grew your tomatoes, they pulled up a lot of the nutrients that you put out, you pulled the tomatoes off, maybe you've composted your tomatoes. So you've reduced the amount of nutrients that are in the soil by something, we don't know what that is. So I would certainly have a soil test pulled, and that will indicate what it is that you need to add to that garden before planting, whether it's nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, or any other essential nutrient that plant needs. You'll know that before planting rather than planting and then finding out that something went wrong and then having to try to remediate that in the middle of the growing season. So when you pull a soil test, if you're growing in a true soil such as this soil here, earth, native soil, something like that, you only need one of the baggies that's in the soil testing kit to submit to the soil lab, and they'll be able to run everything. If you're growing in a raised bed, something that has a soilless media, something that's a bagged material, or if it's a composted pine bark type material, you're going to need to submit a quart. There's 3 bags that come in the soil sample kit. Fill up all of those bags for one sample. The soilless media test is going to have a different sampling method than the true soil test. And so they do need to know which one you're actually sampling. That way they can do it correctly and let you know exactly what you need in your particular growing area.
Okay. Tell me, if people want to do a soil test, how can they submit it and where do they need to go?
So you can go to any of your local extension offices, pick up a soil testing kit. You can also go to the LSU Ag Center's website and find the form, and you can submit your own sample. Many of our local nurseries will also carry the soil testing kits. If you find the mail-in boxes at the local nurseries, those are going to be free to take home, and then you submit a check for $6 for shipping of the sample and then $10 for every sample that you send in.
Well, Lee, thank you so much for joining us. I've gotten a lot of good tips from you, and I hope everybody at home has. I know that I'm going to take them and bring them into my home garden, and maybe I can have a successful fall garden this year. If you have any questions or ideas for future segments, submit them to us on our new website, twilatv.org. We've got a brand new design, and we have a spot on there where you can submit questions for Blooming on the Bayou, and Lee will surely be able to answer any questions that you have. Next month, Lee's going to be joining us again, and we're going to talk about incorporating ornamental grasses into your landscape. So we hope to see you next time on Blooming on the Bayou.
As Kristen said, be sure to head over to our website at twilatv.org for plenty of resources from the LSU Ag Center to help you grow a successful fall garden. Well, that does it for this edition of Twila. Be sure to join us next week when Carl and I will travel to New Orleans to the Farm and Table Conference and Famboree at the New Orleans Ernest N. Morial Convention Center. This event is a 2-day event featuring all the best local chefs at the Battle of the Gulf Culinary Clash. Then foodies, farmers, and families will all come together for a day of gardening, animals, greenhouses, cooking, and more ways to learn how to bring farming into your own backyard and to your table. We'll bring you some great stories from there next week. Until then, you can watch all of our stories online at twilatv.org, and be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. For all of us here at Twila, thanks for joining us. We hope to see you again right here next week.